these children the force of their extra normal gifts. There are no scruples here. If you go along, you get tokens for the vending machines. If you don't, punishment is brutal. As each new victim disappears to back half, Luke becomes more and more desperate to get out and get help. But no one has ever escaped from the Institute. As psychically terrifying as Firestarter, and with the spectacular kid power of it, the Institute is Stephen King's gut-wrenchingly dramatic story of good versus evil in a world where the good guys don't always win. Wow, deep. Okay, not really deep, but intense. Okay, now we left off on this part. That says the ending was great events turn on small hinges. Okay. An hour later, he was sitting on a rock. Oh wait, let me see. Okay, 4. Okay. An hour later, he was sitting on a rock at the edge of the 2-lane, waiting for a seemingly endless freight train to cross the road. It was headed in the direction of Dupre. At a stately 30 miles an hour, boxcars, auto racks, most loaded with wrecks rather than new vehicles. Okay, I don't know if I should say the ones that are in quotation marks, I mean in parentheses. Tankers, flat cars, and gondolas loaded with God knew what evil substances that might, in the event of a derailment, catch the piney woods afire or afflict the Dupre populace with noxious or even fatal fumes. At last came an orange caboose where a man in bib overalls sat in a long chair reading a paperback and smoking a cigarette. He looked up from his book and tipped him a wave. Tim tipped one right back. The town was 2 miles further on, built around the intersection of SR 92 is now called Main Street, and 2 other streets. Dupre seemed to have largely escaped the chain stores that had taken over the bigger towns. There was a Western Auto, but it was closed down, the windows soaked over. Tim noted a grocery store, a drugstore, a mercantile that appeared to sell a little bit of everything, and a couple of beauty salons. There was also a movie theater with for sale or rent on the mark, an auto supply store that fancied itself the Dupre's Pizza Shop, and a restaurant called Bev's Eatery. There were 3 churches, 1 Methodist, 2 off-brand, all of the come to Jesus variety. There were no more than 2 dozen cars and farm trucks scattered along the slant parking spaces steps, then turned back for a closer look at the notice boards flanking the double doors. At one of the notices in particular, thinking he must have read it wrong, but wanting to make sure, not in this day and age, he thought, can't be, but it was, next to a poster reading, if you thought marijuana is legal in South Carolina. Think again was one that read simply, Night Knocker wanted, apply within. Wow, he thought, talk about a blast from the past. He turned toward the rusty motel sign and paused again, thinking about that help wanted sign. Just then, one of the police station doors opened and a lanky cop came out, settling his cap on his red hair. The lightening sun twinkled on his badge. He took in Tim's work boots, dusty jeans, and blue beret shirt. His eyes dwelled for a moment on the duffel bag slung over Tim's shoulders before moving on to his face. Can I help you, sir? The same impulse that had made him stand up on the plane swept over him now. Probably not, but who knows? The red-headed cop was Deputy Taggart, Florida. He escorted Tim inside where the familiar smells of bleach and ammonia cakes wafted into the office from the for-sale holding area in the back. After introducing Tim to Veronica Gibson, the middle-aged deputy shirt. He wore a Glock on his hip and a ruby ring on one pinky. His accent was strong. His attitude was good old boy friendly, but his eyes, deep in their fatty sockets, were smart and inquisitive. He could have been typecast in one of those southern cliche movies like Walking Tall, if not for the fact that he was black. And something else, a framed certificate of graduation from the FBI's National Academy in Quantico, hung on the wall next to the official portrait of President Trump. That was not the sort of things you got by mail in cereal box tops. All right then, Sheriff John said, rocking back in his office chair. I haven't got long. Marcella hates it when I'm late for dinner, unless there's some sort of crisis, of course. I want to say that again, okay? All right then, Sheriff John said, rocking back in his office chair. I haven't got long. Marcella hates it when I'm late for dinner, unless there's some sort of crisis, of course. Understood. So let's get right to the point. Well, let's get right to the part of it. Why'd you leave Sarasota PD, and what are you doing here? South Carolina don't have too many beaten Jackson, Dupre, and exactly on any of them. Ashworth probably wouldn't be on the phone to Sarasota tonight, but he would be in the morning, so there was no point in killing the Lily. Not that Tim wanted to. If he didn't get the night knocker job, he would spend the night in Dupre and move on in the morning, continuing his stop and start progress to New York. A journey he now understood to be a necessary hiatus between what had happened one day late last year in Sarasota's Westfield Mall, and whatever might happen next. All that aside, honestly, was the best policy, if only because lies, especially in an age when almost all information was available to anyone with a keyboard and a Wi-Fi connection, usually came back to hunt the liar. I was given a choice between resignation and dismissal. I chose resignation. No one was happy about it, least of all me. I liked my job and I liked the Gulf Coast, but it was the best solution. This way I get a little money, nothing like a full pension, but better than nothing. I split it with my ex-wife, cause and make it simple so I can get to my dinner while it's still hot. This won't take long. At the end of my shift one day last November, I swung into the Westfield Mall to buy a pair of socks. I had to go to a wedding. I was still in uniform, okay? Okay. I was coming out of the shoe depot when a woman ran up to and said a teenager was waving a gun around up by the movie theater. So I went up there double time. Did you draw your weapon? No, sir, not then. The kid with the gun was probably 14. And I ascertained that he was either drunk or high. He had another kid down and was kicking him. He was also pointing the gun at him. Sounds like that Cleveland deal. The cop who shot the black kid who was waving a pellet gun. That was in my mind when I approached, but the cop who shot Damari Rice swore he thought the kid was waving a real gun around. I was pretty sure the one I saw wasn't real, but I couldn't be completely sure. Maybe you know why. Sheriff John Ashworth seemed to have forgotten about dinner, because your subject was pointing it at the kid he had on the floor. No sense pointing a fake gun at someone, unless I suppose the kid on the ground didn't know that. The perp said later he was shaking it at the kid, nor pointing it, saying, "It's mine, mother. If you don't take what's mine." I didn't see that. To me, he looked like he was pointing it. I yelled at him to drop the weapon and put his hands up. He either didn't hear me or didn't pay any attention. He just went on kicking and pointing or shouting or shaking, if that's what he was doing. In any case, I drew my sidearm. He paused. If it makes any difference, these kids were white. Not to me, it doesn't. hours. He's got amnesia and blinding headaches. So the department, yes, it'll go on for a while, but he'll end up getting something. Chef Jung considered. If he hung around to film the altercation, he may not get all that much, no matter how bad his headaches are. I suppose the department landed you with the reckless discharge of a weapon. They had, and it would be nice, Tim thought, if we could leave it at that, but they couldn't. Chef John might look like an African-American version of Boss Hogg